guys, Tiffany here, and today we're going to talk about something that's kind of interesting, but also very eerie, very creepy, and could be just a corner away from where you are. Yes, we are going to be touching again on backroom lore. Now, I did touch a little bit on this in my going to the Ghosts of Christmas Past Marketplace at the Monroeville Mall. There is that vlog that's available on this channel, and we explored the Christmas Past Marketplace. We also explored a little bit of the mall, and since they did film the movie Dawn of the Dead there, George Romero's film, and we did a little exploring of maybe some kind of innocuous looking doors that could possibly maybe lead to a back room. Now, before we get into the lore of the back rooms, I am going to just kind of show you this candle that I am burning to kind of set the mood a little bit. It's Ghostly Whispers by Underworld Connection. It was part of her Halloween collection. I don't think it's available anymore, but this kind of sets the mood, and please definitely purchase from local artisans and just people who have their own small businesses, their handmade businesses. I always enjoy purchasing from people like that. And Ghostly Whispers, it's pumpkin, walnuts, and maple. Really, really good. And I think it's a very, just the name of the candle, Ghostly Whispers. It kind of goes with the backroom lore. And I'm also wearing my Twilight Zone marathon shirt for this episode. And just because kind of the whole backroom thing, it's almost like stepping into kind of a weird Twilight Zone episode. And the Twilight Zone actually even, their older episodes and even some of the more recent incarnation of the Twilight Zone, because it had its first incarnation. Rod Serling created it, and it was it was first created back in the late 50s and went into the earlier and into the mid part of the 1960s, and then it had other incarnations in the 1980s and also in the 2000s. And then there's also Black Mirror, which was also supposedly, I think, inspired by the Twilight Zone as well. But they actually have some backroom-esque episodes. And back when the Twilight Zone was first made, I'm not sure if the whole lore of the back room was even a thing back then. However, there's episodes I think it's called Living Doll with Anne Francis, and episodes like that, which kind of touch a little bit on what can happen at a mall after hours, what can happen if you might venture into the wrong part of a department store or something. So I thought this would be appropriate to wear. Okay, so a little on backroom lore. So backroom lore, at least a lot of it, centers around this unassuming door, usually in a place like a shopping mall or a shopping center, or some place that's public, some place that has, is buzzing with people, and could also, though, have a door that might look innocent, that most people wouldn't notice, but if you happen to venture inside, that door will lead you into another world. You might find yourself within these kind of hollow, kind of plain, very industrial looking, maybe some yellow walls, cemented corridors. But if you try to find your way out, there almost doesn't seem to be a way out. In fact, you may venture into a world, a place where you may never be found again. Now, as I said, a lot of these stories and lore surrounding back rooms tend to center around shopping malls, like I said, and shopping centers and different locations that might seem innocent, that might even attract a lot of families, a lot of people. But what lies beneath the surface is usually unsuspected by those that are walking around and perhaps walking right past that door, that should they open it, they may become, well, disappeared from the rest of the world. Now, even some books that are titled The Mall, like there's one in particular that I remember reading as a kid, by Richie Tankersley Cusick, called The Mall. And I'm actually listening again to the audiobook, and I really, it's really fascinating how she really just weaves this world of, just kind of like these back rooms, and, what can be hiding there, what can be lurking there, and are the people that you encounter at a shopping mall really who they seem to be, or really who they claim to be? It's like who are you really walking past as you just kind of go about your business, go about your shopping? And Richie Tankersley Cusick is not the only one to write about such things. Other authors have written books centered around shopping malls, and a lot of the time they do, and a lot of them are actually just titled The Mall, and a lot of them do touch on, what's basically behind the walls of, your shopping center or your mall, what's going on maybe beneath the floors of the mall, what's really there. And especially, and I did mention this in my Monroeville Mall vlog, with Monroeville Mall being as old as it is, starting its construction in the late 1960s, especially, like a mall that's, that's been around for quite some time. It's like, that's probably been renovated, that's been extended upon. You don't really know every area, when you think about it, every inch, every area of the mall, and what could actually be inside that. And this is why I have always found malls kind of creepy. They're very happy, and I do, I have a fascination with them. They're, on the one hand, they're very happy, they attract, a lot of families go shopping there. There's restaurants, food courts, there's all different shops, and during Christmas time, you can go get your picture with Santa in the middle of the mall. And, and I liked, the holiday decorations that they had going on in the Monroeville Mall. But at the same time, it's just you never know what's lurking beneath the surface. So one of my next podcast episodes will be about a deeper dive into back rooms, because I've just been kind of on a roll with this, and also the different levels of back rooms as told on Reddit. But today I am going to share with you 2 backroom stories that I read about, and also kind of share my own backroom experience that, yes, obviously I did emerge from, but I kind of had a little taste of what might happen when you venture into a back room. So sit back, relax, turn a light off, maybe get a snack, a drink, a hot drink perhaps, because it is a cold winter night as I record this, and listen to these tales of the back room. So this first story is one that is centered around an older gentleman, and we'll call him Arthur. So Arthur liked to walk around this mall. And in fact, he would often walk around the mall with his sister. It was one of the things that they liked to do together. And, so they would make these plans at least a couple of times a week, and they would meet up and just kind of walk around the mall and enjoy each other's company. Now, one of these days this week, Arthur got a text message from his sister saying that she was running a little bit late and to just meet her in front of the usual sporting goods center that they often met each other in front of, and they would then have their afternoon together. Now, after this, Arthur texted his sister back, okay, that's fine. And he promised to meet her in front of the sporting goods center that they usually met in front of. Only when his sister would go to meet Arthur, she would see that Arthur was not there. Now, the thing about Arthur was that he did have early stage dementia. However, he was still pretty functional, at least most of the time. Like, he was in the earliest stages, so it wasn't to where it was really bad and he couldn't take care of himself. And this routine, this shopping mall routine, was one of the ways that kept him going, kept him present, and kept him recognizing his sister, and also gave his sister time with him before the dementia would start to get bad. But because of that, even though her brother was still very functional, she obviously was very concerned and thought maybe perhaps, he might have had a spell and then maybe went to another area of the mall. First, his sister tried to not panic. Perhaps he just maybe went to the wrong sporting goods store because there was more than one in the mall. Perhaps he went to the food court. Perhaps there was, maybe another store that he might have gone to. So she walked around the mall quickly, searching for her brother, asking certain shop owners if they had seen him, and she even retraced her steps back to the normal place that they would meet, just in case he might be there waiting for her. But it was to no avail. She could not find Arthur. So she actually then enlisted the help of mall security. And mall security tried calling him on the intercom. They told him to, where to meet them with his sister. And so they were hoping that perhaps he just got lost somewhere and that this would perhaps bring him back. Now, they were waiting. They were waiting actually for quite some time. And they tried calling him a couple of times on the intercom. But it was to no avail. Arthur never showed up. So they decided to then go to the security cameras and check the security cameras just to maybe see if he wandered off somewhere. Now, in the security cameras, they did see Arthur walk toward the sporting goods store where he normally met his sister. However, after that, he seemed to just disappear. There were no other footage of Arthur walking around the mall, walking in any of the stores, in the food court, in any place, any of the usual places that he and his sister went to. There was no visible footage except for one tiny sliver of him walking toward the sporting goods store. So days passed, and they still could not find Arthur. There was still no sign of him. Now, mind you, they were still looking for him. They had opened up some of the maintenance closets, the maintenance doors, some of the employees only places, those doors leading into some of the corridors, but still no sign of him. But then one day, a maintenance worker was looking for something that they needed in order to perform their tasks. And something made them open up this door that was just kind of nestled in a very far corner of the mall. One that not too many people would notice. It was one of those, unless you were looking for it, you were not going to, you were basically not going to really pay any mind to it or pay any notice of it. So, but when that maintenance worker opens up the door, there, unfortunately, is Arthur, and Arthur is no longer alive. So as we mentioned before, Arthur did have early stage dementia. So of course it was concluded that perhaps he had a spell and unfortunately wandered into an area where he would not be found for quite some time. Now, it is also concluded that even though they did look in several of these doors, perhaps he, in his dementia state, maybe slipping in and out of his, his spells, and maybe losing, kind of drifting, in and out of his sense of reality, became disoriented, and unfortunately did not make it out of that back room. Sadly, of course, that story had a tragic ending. However, this next one doesn't end so sadly, but it is still an example of just how disorienting getting lost in some of these back rooms can be. So this next story actually centers around a young man whom we'll call Mike. And he was a typical shopper at his local shopping mall. And on this day on which the story takes place, he was doing some shopping, perhaps some holiday shopping, and just going about his usual shopping regimen. Now, the mall was very crowded that day, especially if it was during the holiday season. It was quite crowded, and Mike was ready to leave. However, he wasn't quite in the mood to push his way through the crowd. So he started looking for maybe a side exit door that would take him out and then into the parking lot. And then he would just be able to go home and unpack his purchases and just kind of get ready for the evening. So Mike's searching for any type of side door that he could leave the mall through. In fact, he's done it before when the mall's gotten a little too crowded for his liking, and he was able to do it no problem before in the past. So why should this time be any different? So he spots this kind of innocuous looking gray door that's kind of off to the side, a little ways out of the crowd of people, and he makes a beeline for it. He's just, he can't wait to get out of these crowds and just back into his car and back home. So he opens up the door and steps inside. Now, when he steps inside, the door closes behind him. And he's looking around, and it almost doesn't seem like other side exits in the past that he had exited out. In fact, it almost seems like this labyrinth of stairs, and it does not really resemble just the straightforward exits that he was accustomed to. So he decides, okay, I'll just leave and I'll just go out one of the other exits, or I'll just suck it up and leave through the front entrance because I don't like the looks of this. But then when he turns around to open up the door again, he notices that there is no handle on the door. Now he starts banging on the door, yelling for somebody to open up. However, it doesn't seem like anybody can hear him. In fact, it seems like The room itself is almost soundproof. He can hear the conversation and the buzz of people and all the action going on the other side of the door. He could hear them, but it seems like they are unable to hear him. So despite his best efforts, he is unable to get anyone, whether it's a customer, mall staff, whatever, to come and open the door for him. So he decides then, okay, there has to be a way out of here somewhere. So he starts to head down the stairs, and to his relief, he does see a sign that says exit with the arrows pointing downward. So he's like, okay, this is good. All right, exit. We're going somewhere here. And so he starts to descend the stairs. However, as he descends the stairs, it almost seems as if these stairs are never ending. And then he comes across another sign that says exit, only this time the arrow is pointing upward. So Mike is a little confused right now, but he decides follow the arrows. So he starts to then follow the arrow upward. Well, now as he's doing this, he seems to be coming across all different exit signs with very conflicting arrows. And he's starting to become a little disoriented, but he's trying to stay grounded and keep his calm. And he does try to take out his phone and text message somebody. However, he has no service at all, no bars, no service, no anything inside of this room. So he keeps trying to follow the signs. He keeps trying to find service. And that's, as a side note, supposedly your phone, everything, all your electronics completely stop working in these back rooms. So Mike is at a loss for what to do, and he's starting to become more and more disoriented as he goes on. Now, there are times when he does come to a door that looks like it might lead out into the mall, and he could hear the sounds of the mall on the other side, but either the door, once again, has no handle, or that door it's locked. And all of his attempts to bang on the door and yell for somebody to open all seem to be in vain. Now he does go up a couple more stairs and once again comes across a door. Only this time he can't hear any sounds. Now this could mean that perhaps the mall had unfortunately closed and Mike was still inside the mall, or he had reached another dimension perhaps, or another part of the mall that was no longer, or at least currently, not in use. So 2 weeks go by, and of course by this time, Mike's family and friends had reported him missing after not hearing from him for like a good couple of days, first doing a wellness check at his home, and then just discovering that he had completely disappeared. Now, after those 2 weeks, there was once again a maintenance worker opened up one of the doors, and it was there that they found Mike at the bottom of a flight of stairs. Now, fortunately, Mike was still alive, but he was barely conscious. But they were able to get him the attention that he needed, and he was able to recover. And they think that it was perhaps the fact that he was very fit and in good shape, that he was able to withstand those 2 weeks. But had they discovered him just a little bit later, he may not have been so lucky. Now, Mike's story did spark a lot of curiosity, and so much so that a local news station decided to put the whole backroom thing to the test. There was a reporter who actually went inside the door where Mike entered, and of course she was monitored, and there was just equipment there, camera equipment, and people there to help, just in case she happened to also get lost and maybe a little disoriented. But what she discovered was that there the exit signs that kept pointing down and pointing up, eventually they led up to the roof of the mall, which I find like, wow, like that's kind of interesting, because because it's just like, it was almost like this labyrinth of staircases that, and eventually it leads up to the roof. Like, I don't know, but that is Mike's story, Mike's backroom story. And that's pretty crazy. I think, like, that's scary, because you think you're going into just a normal side exit, and you end up in this labyrinth of stairwells, and you don't have any cell service. You don't have, none of your electronics are working. So, that is, yeah, I would say that would definitely be a very, very scary situation. And, it's fortunate that he was able to get out of that. And now, my story. Now, I have worked in malls before, and there were times when I did have to, go into one of these backroom corridors to maybe take out the garbage, do like tasks like that. And I will say, it is pretty scary back there. And and I was all, my brain would always be going like, okay, like what might be hiding behind there. But my actual kind of backroom experience goes back to when I worked as a personal trainer at a gym. So the gym that I worked at the time was in this shopping center, and in the back of the gym, you basically, in order to take the garbage out, you had to go through, the way it was set up was so weird. You had to basically go through literally this labyrinth of, one was an old empty office, and then there were these other corridors and other rooms. And if you made it out on the other side, you would come across this furniture store that was in use. But you had to go into one of those like big, scary looking elevators, and put the trash into it, make your way down, and then put it in the dumpster, and then come back. And if you knew your way around, I mean, you would be okay. And see, this is what was weird, because I knew my way around there, and because I had taken the garbage out several times before, but for some reason, this one day, it was weird. Like, I was going my usual direction, but somehow I couldn't find where I had to be. And I had volunteered to take out the garbage, and it was just so weird. It was almost like I was walking in circles, and and no matter what direction I went in, I would end up in the same place. And like I said, I had taken out the garbage before. I knew my way around that big old labyrinth, but for some reason today, it was almost like I was trapped in this never-ending loop. And the thing too was that I actually had a personal training client that I had to be there for. And so I did. So I was like, Okay, sorry. So I ran out of storage on my phone, my camera, and I had to empty some of it out. But getting back to my story, yeah, for some reason, today I just kept on walking around in circles. And then I tried calling up to the front desk of the gym so that I could let them know, hey, for some reason I'm lost. I can't find my way out. I don't know if somebody can come meet me halfway, or at least, like, I don't know, let my client know, whatever. But and earlier I mentioned that one of the things that happens with your electronics or your cell phone service in these back rooms, if you happen to venture into a back room, is that they stop working. You can't get any service, and sometimes your electronics just die. Well, I got out my phone, and well, my phone wasn't dead. And I did have some bars, but when I tried to call up to the front desk, it was just this dead air. And I'm just like looking at, it's like, okay, what do I do? Like, I have a client, I have to get up to my client. So I'm just like, okay, I'm going to retrace my steps and try to go the way I know, the way I've always known to go. And I'm just like, I'm very mystified at this point as to how this is happening, how kind of like a labyrinth type of maze in the store that I have walked many times to and from, to like take out garbage or do some other stuff like collected delivery or something, that for some reason I'm getting lost in it and walking in circles. So I slowly, retrace my steps. I'm getting back on track. And this time I start to find, I start to kind of make some progress. And I'm like, okay, this is good. And then I start to hear voices, not voices in my head, voices, kind of in the short distance. So I'm like, okay, good. Maybe either I'm coming back to the gym or I'm coming to that furniture store. And it was the furniture store. so I'm like, I go to the people. I'm like, for some reason I got totally lost. So like, just to be safe, could you direct me back? Even though I walked this a million times, like, could you like direct me back? So basically, so I take, they let me take the garbage out from their door because, yeah, for some reason, and that's the thing, I'm walking around with this like big thing of garbage, like while I'm trying to navigate, this like labyrinth. And, so they let me take the garbage out, and I didn't go back through there. I asked them, could I take the garbage out through your door? And then I walked back around the side of the building to the front. And that was how I was able to get out of that. But it was just weird. And I told them at the front desk, and I was able to get back in time for my client too. And that was important. But I told them at the front desk, I was like, what happened? And they were all like, yeah, that's weird, and like, I hope that doesn't happen to me. But that was just a very, very just strange thing that happened to me. And like I said, if I was like brand new and didn't know my way around and gotten lost, it's like, okay, fine, whatever. But, there was just a freak accident. But like I said, but I had been at that gym at that point for quite some, for like, quite a few months at that point. And I had taken out the garbage before, walked that labyrinth before, like no problem. But that time, yeah, it was like just this never ending circle that I don't know, but I don't know if I found like a portal or a backroom portal. And, But yeah, but that's my backroom story. And yeah, so obviously I came out of it unscathed, but yeah, but when you look at these stories on Reddit, like all the different levels of the backroom, which I will be getting into on the next podcast episode. We'll be diving a little bit deeper into that. It's bizarre, and it's almost like, at least like the way I'm gonna have to read about it a little bit more, but like the way that that I have the impression of, like the impression that I have of it is like, if you happen to step into the wrong part of the back room of like a mall or a shopping center, like this is where you'll end up, and you have to go through 99 levels to get to, like, basically to get out. And that and that kind of reminds me a little bit of like the Mike story, where he just kept on, just like he just found himself in this labyrinth of stairs that basically kind of led up to the roof, and yeah, it's like that was kind of like a mini version of like the levels that we're going to talk about more in the next episode, but the next podcast episode. But yeah, but what do you think of like the backroom theory, the backroom lore? Have you ever heard any stories? Have you, dived into any of the Reddit backroom threads? Have you, and have you had your own backroom experience with like the mysterious back rooms? So, but yeah, but I would love to hear about it if you've ever had like any type of experience, or even if maybe you worked at like a place that had some of these like back rooms and you were just like, I don't know, this is kind of weird, kind of freaky. But yeah, but yeah, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. But yeah, but that's this video for today on backroom lore. And like I said, on one of the next podcast episodes, we'll be diving a little bit deeper into the Reddit threads and a little bit more on some of the theories of back rooms. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell for the notification. And we're almost up to, at the time of filming this, we're almost up to our first 100 subscribers. So yay. I thank you so much. I appreciate you. I appreciate those of you that have been commenting, watching, and yeah, also continue to make more of this stuff. So, all right, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and take care, and please stay safe, but also stay spooky.